Welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today we are joined by Grady, and he is on to talk about a website that he has built. He spent the last couple of years building it. At its peak, it got 170,000 page views and has earned $9,000 a month Australian. He's done this with no previous SEO experience while working a full-time job. So he's been busy, and we get to hear all about the journey that he goes on with this website. Now, Grady has a journalism background, which I think is pretty interesting. So we talk a bit about that, both at the outset, but throughout the podcast. And I just think it's really interesting to learn what a professional writer basically can bring to the equation when it comes to building a website. He certainly shares some of the advantages he feels like that gives him along the way. His website had a pretty slow ramp up as well. So we've had people on the podcast who have gotten their website off to a really, really fast start. It took Grady's website a little while to get going, but once it got going, it really came swinging. So we get into all the details along the way, the keyword research that Grady used. He walks through the specific method he uses to find his keywords that he goes after. Some of the interesting things that we haven't really talked about a lot before, but we really get into on this one is the effects of seasonality. Grady's website is in a really, really seasonal niche. I mean, really seasonal, by the way. And so we talk about how to mitigate that, how to work around that, if it actually matters that much, or if you just kind of roll with it, and some of the things he's doing to flatten out a little bit of the effects of that. We also talk about building websites for different areas of the world, different countries. Grady's based out of Australia, and so I asked him about whether he's built this website for the Australian market, for the US market, the UK market, et cetera, what the upsides and downsides are about that, how to go about that. So we do get into some of those details. Grady's a really fun guy, and he has a lot of great things to share. I think you'll really enjoy today's interview. Introducing nichesites.com. Are you looking to scale your niche site portfolio or build your first website? Look no further than nichesites.com. With a portfolio of successful websites and over 700 plus satisfied clients, the folks at nichesites.com have the skills and experience to help you succeed. From keyword research to link building, content writing to done-for-you websites, nichesites.com offers a full range of services to help your content site grow. As the saying goes, a trial is worth more than 1,000 words, and they're offering a special trial just for new customers. You get 5,000 words of content completely free with your order of 10,000 plus traffic backlinks. Don't miss this opportunity. Head on over to nichesites.com/trial and take advantage of this amazing trial offer. Again, it's niche sites, plural, nichesites.com/trial. Go claim your free content today. Before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
Do you remember this campaign? It was all over the news. It is the most intelligent royal campaign. With over 100 links generated in the world's biggest online publications, this is one of the most viral PR campaigns of 2021. This is how we've done it. The methodology was pretty simple. We looked at the QS World University Rankings for the institutions attended by key members of the royal family to discover which royal is the brightest of all. Meghan Markle came out on top, followed by Kate Middleton and Prince William. We put these findings in a press release and sent it to mainstream media and journalists who write about royals. From Russia to the UK, the US, Vietnam and Japan, this story got massive coverage, landing over 100 links and created a massive buzz on social media. Simple research, but a great story that journalists love to write about. I hope this will put you on fire and will give you inspiration.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now. Hey, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and today we're joined by Grady. Welcome on board.
Hey, Jared, how you going? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining. And, I asked you at the outset, you're down in Australia, so I had to ask, what time is it? Because I know that when we were starting to set up this recording, we actually are recording on different days of the week. And so you're joining us from quite an early time in the morning. I appreciate you jumping on board to make the time zone stuff work.
No, not a problem. Yeah, it's 7 o'clock down here, which I guess isn't too early for some people, but yeah, most people who know me, I'm not really a morning person, so I'm hoping I make a bit of sense in today's podcast for you.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I mean, you're a day ahead of me, so you probably know things that I don't know, and all the other guests don't know. So, well, hey, let's dive in here. Today's gonna be a really cool deep dive into your journey in building websites and starting in the same place that so many of us did. But why don't you give us a background on who you are and maybe get us caught up to where you first started building websites?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so as you said, my name's Grady, but most of my mates just call me Grades. So that's kind of just what I go with on Twitter and things at the moment. Yeah, as you said, I'm Australian, so obviously born and raised here. My background's actually in journalism, so I did a journalism degree for 3 years at university, and then kind of worked in the journalism field, mainly in like small regional newspapers, for kind of the past 10 years. So that's I guess helped with building niche websites, the content side of things, having to meet deadlines and write a lot of copy. So that certainly helped. That's I guess a quick rundown of my background. I still work full time. I still work a 9-to-5 job, not kind of the hours that I used to when I was working in journalism, which was kind of one of the reasons I got out of it. Which gives me a little bit of time to work on my side hobbies, and that's being niche sites at the moment.
So you have a background in journalism. You still have a job right now while you're building websites. What are you doing right now? Is it related to journalism, or did you kind of venture into a whole different field?
It's still in media and comms. So it's not that, I guess, hugely deadline pressured journalism environment. It's a bit more, 9 to 5, and which is good for me. Like I enjoy that.
You mentioned journalism helps when it comes to a website, deadline oriented, creating content, that sort of thing. What are the big things you think journalism gives you or has offered you that has given you a leg up or a bit of an advantage when it comes to building websites?
Certainly the grind, I would say. It can be when you're having to write, 10, 11, 12 stories a week on deadline, that can be pretty taxing. So just that volume of writing each week. So building niche websites, as you would know, it's certainly got that element to it. You're having to write a lot of content each week if you want to move the needle forwards and see results. So that's certainly helped. And prioritizing, I guess, it's, when you're still working full time and working on a side hustle, there's only so many hours in the day that you can work on it. So I guess being able to prioritize time certainly helped.
It's probably a little bit of a personal question. I'm just curious. I think we've had a journalist on before, and I asked him this question. So do you enjoy writing, or is it just that you're really good at it and it's your job, and now you're using that skill set again with website building? Or do you really do you like to sit down and, kind of put the proverbial pen to paper kind of thing?
It depends what I'm writing. I'll be honest. I guess
Fair enough.
In the early days, it was really good to actually just do something away from work and kind of write something for yourself. That was one of the reasons I really got into it. I've actually just started a newsletter from Twitter, which kind of gives me that bit of a creative writing outlet. I think with writing with niche sites, you can get into that bit of grind and a bit of that, I guess, same. So having that outlet's been good. But yeah, I wouldn't say I love writing. I'm good at it. It's something I've done for kind of 10 years, but it's not necessarily something I would choose to do if I could do something else. But yeah, I like it enough to, having done it for 3 years now. So,
well, good. That's a good segue. Let's go. Let's start at the moment that you kind of transitioned into building websites, and maybe tell us what gave you the urge to start building a website. Obviously, you have a good skill set for it, but there's more to building a successful site than just writing. There's a lot of SEO that's involved, social media that might be involved, keyword research, all these other areas. So, I'm interested to hear how you got into this space.
Yeah, sure. So it actually started in kind of mid to late 2018. So it's been going for a while. So yeah, at that time I was working as the editor of a small regional newspaper, managing a team of about 6 people. pretty demanding job. Like you would think a small regional paper wouldn't be too demanding, but 45, 50-hour weeks, which I know to some people isn't crazy hours. To me, just with the responsibility of the job and that deadline pressure, it was kind of a tough gig, and I was looking to kind of do something different. I think the tipping point was, I did it for a couple of years in that role and asked my boss for a pay rise after 2 years, and I think it might have been $1.50 or $2 an hour. He bumped it up, so I kind of went, maybe being the editor of a small regional newspaper isn't going to pay the bills forever. So I started looking for ways to kind of build online income on the side. So naturally, as I'm sure other people have done, you search how to make money online. For me, it was how to make money online writing, given my background. Stumbled across your channel, Spencer's channel, Niche Pursuits, Income Score, all the kind of the big ones in the space, and was just blown away by the fact that there were people out there making tens of thousands of dollars just by writing blogs. Like I was, writing 10 or 11 stories a week, and I thought, hell, I could do that. So that's kind of how it started. It was funny. The first website I made, I wrote 16 posts for it, and I thought, yep, I'm killing it. I'm gonna, retirement's only a year around the corner. Wasn't the case. I kind of let it sit there for about 3 or 4 months, and it didn't do anything, and I got really impatient, so I actually deleted it.
You deleted it?
Yeah, got rid of WordPress. I said, no, this is not working. This is waste of time. And I actually didn't think about niche websites for another 18 months. So it wasn't until the pandemic hit, when everyone's obviously sitting at home and, thinking what they can do. That's kind of how I got back into it. So I spoke to a mate who had, been chatting about these, this crazy way of making money online, and he was on board. So we kind of went, all right, we'll have a crack at it together. And since then, that's how it really got started with the main website that we have. And it kind of just took off from there.
That's great. It's great to hear that you weren't deterred by that first. I mean, I guess we'll call it a mistake. I think deleting a site is probably always a mistake. Maybe I don't know. We can get around that not being the case, but you kind of rebounded and then it went after it again. Catch us up to where things are now, and then we'll start unwinding how you did this. I love to set the stage so people kind of hear where things are at now, and then we'll get into all the details. So maybe jump the gun, tell us how many sites you're working on now, where they're at, anything you're comfortable with, whether it's revenue, whether it's page views, traffic type stuff. And again, everybody keeping in mind, you're still working full time as well.
Yeah, so it's not, some of the numbers to me, like I'm pretty stoked with them. It's not like some of the, the big guests you have on here with kind of $40,000, $50,000 monthly revenue. But the main site that we've got, so like I said, I run it with a mate. It's kind of about 60-40, I think, split in terms of I do a lot of the writing and SEO and keyword research, and he just does purely writing. The site the main site that we have is around 2.5 years old. At its peak, it's got 215 posts on it. At its peak, it was doing around 170,000 page views a month, and bringing in around $9,000 a month Australian in profit. We didn't realize it was in a seasonal niche. So, in kind of June last year, I was pretty much writing my resignation letter. I was going, beauty, it's going to the moon. Like I'm going to be able to retire and just do it, full time. Not quite the case. It's been on a bit of a, seasonal downtrend. So at the moment, it's doing around 45,000 page views a month, which is kind of in line with the trend that it has in that niche. So we'd be expecting it to kind of starting to climb over the next couple of months, which it's actually starting to do. It's been up in the last couple of weeks, which is great. Because I originally thought it was a Google update. I thought this is, it was going really, really well. And
you didn't delete it this time, though. You didn't delete the site this time.
Didn't delete it this time. It's quite funny actually. My mate was kind of like, "Oh, what are we going to do? That we're just going to get rid of it?" And I said, "No, let's keep it and just hang it out."
Been there, done that.
So, yeah, I've done that before. It's probably doing around $2,500 a month at the moment, which is, to us, it's still great. That's some money on the side. It's just, around kind of that April, May, June is when it really peaks. So that's that site. I'm working on a new one at the moment. It's about 7 months old. That one's actually I can say it's in the pet niche. I won't tell you which one, but that's got around 54 posts on it. It's doing almost 2,000 views a month traffic, which is kind of where I'd expect it at this point. Kind of following the same trajectory as the main website we have. That one's interesting. I'm kind of experimenting with AI assisted writing for that one. So after, doing 2.5 years of writing all my own content for the main site that we have, I kind of thought I really want to try and speed this process up a little bit without kind of skimping on still the quality. But, obviously the rise of ChatGPT and all these different AI tools, I kind of thought it'd be silly not to. So, I still heavily edit the writing. It just helps kind of, do outlines and, the body of the post and things like that, but I'll still write the headings and the intros and all your answer targets and things. So that one's not monetized yet, but hoping to do that. And then the third one I've got is really just, a bit of a test with programmatic SEO and a purely AI kind of one that I'm doing. It's actually those 16 posts that I wrote, the first website that I ever made back in 2018. I actually kept all the content. And for some reason, I didn't delete the domain, which was stupid because you'd think that, if I'm tanking a website, I'd get rid of the domain so I'm not paying $20 a year, but I didn't. So about a year ago, I re-uploaded all that content. And it's funny because it's doing around 6,000 page views just on its own a month. So I thought, well, I'll try and really crank it up on that one. So published around, I think I put on Twitter, I think I published around 387 programmatic SEO posts on it, probably about a month ago. And all that's starting to rank already. And that's hopefully a bit of a lead generation one. So that one's actually in a real estate niche. So
in a way, you started with an age domain on that one.
In a way, yeah, unintentionally through my own, I guess, stupidity 4 years ago. It might actually.
No, I mean, and it's fun to kind of poke fun at it, but the halls are lined with mistakes that we've all made starting off a website. I think that's one of the big reasons. If I ask people like, "Hey, what's your big advice to somebody who maybe hasn't started yet?" Almost everyone's advice is the same. It's like get started because you're gonna make a number of mistakes out of the gate. So just start and get going so you can make those mistakes because we've all made them and we all, have to put our heads down and kind of push through them. So, it's nice you're sharing those because it's, makes the rest of us feel better when we make dumb mistakes too. And we hear that people who have some success have also made them.
I think it's important because, you can kind of see, I guess, some people with the curated content and all you see is the trends going up and all the charts are just going up and up and up. So I think it's important to share both because it is this kind of crazy bumpy journey where, Google can change something overnight and all of a sudden your traffic tanks, or you could delete your own website. So there's plenty to learn along the way. And that's kind of the position that I take with it is I'm certainly no expert on it. Like I'm not someone who has 10 years of SEO training or any kind of formal training. Like I did a writing degree, but you can certainly learn. There's so much information out there that you can do it. So that's what I'd be telling people is just don't worry about what niche, the biggest thing I get on Twitter, especially just, people messaging going, oh, I don't know what niche to start. I don't know, what space to be in. Just do it. Just start one. And if it doesn't work after, give it a good crack for 8 months. And if you're not seeing any movement, then maybe reposition, but just have a go. That's all I'd say.
Well, and you've been quick to downplay several times, kind of, hey, I don't have the numbers of some of the other people that I've seen on the podcast, or I don't have any formal training in this. But I mean, congratulations, because for anybody starting a side hustle to be, cracking a $9,000 month several years later, it's really still have your full-time job. I mean, you're not putting all of your efforts into this. So it's really great. And you're doing a very good job at it. So congratulations on that. You're probably downplaying it a little much.
No, cheers. Yeah, I don't know. It's you try not to compare yourself with other people, but we're only 3 years, I guess. The main website we have is only kind of 2.5 years into it. So, maybe I'm a bit of a harsh judge of myself, but it's to us it's great. Like it's life-changing money, paying down the mortgage a bit quicker, or taking some of that money and just easing financial pressures wherever else. So, it's been good. Excuse me.
Well, good. Let's get into how you built this thing. And I want to hear about, now that we know where it's at right now. By the way, I'm going to be asking you some questions about that seasonality because that is some brutal seasonality.
Yeah.
170. I wrote it down. 170,000 page views over the summer, down to I think you said 45,000 page views. So we'll get into that too. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening who probably have some seasonality components to their websites, their projects that will want to hear about it from you. But let's talk about how you chose the niche. And this was, we talked about the failed project that's been rebooted, but this was really your first go at it. And a lot of people don't have so much success with their first go. How'd you pick the niche when, you hadn't really picked a lot of niches in websites before this?
Yeah, sure. It was in, so I guess you could call it a hobby niche in a way. It's something that both my mate and I were really kind of into and interested in. So that was kind of, yeah, we kind of just got together and said, hey, do you want to have a go at doing this? Like, I think there's a space for it. Yeah, pretty much just following the same processes that I did for the website in 2018, but just stuck at it for longer. Rather than just writing the 16 posts, it was really, all right, we're going to stick at this for 8 to 12 months. And even if we're not seeing any traffic, just keep publishing. The keyword research side of things, I know a lot of people use keyword research tools, but I kind of just follow the classic alphabet soup income school method. And I found that worked really well for us. For 215 posts we've got on the site to do, I think, 170,000 a month at its peak. There's a lot of winners in there, which is good. But no, it was really just something that we're both passionate about. We know a bit about. We're certainly not experts at. It's something that we enjoy doing. And we kind of just leverage that, I guess. That's, it's one thing that a lot of people go, they go into niches so they don't really have, they see the money side of it, they go, that's going to make me heaps of money, but they may not know anything about it. So I've always kind of felt that if you understand the niche and if you're kind of doing it each day or, each week, it makes it easier to write content that makes sense and is actually helpful. So I think I guess it's a mixture of luck, I guess. Like we kind of thought, it'll work. But until you actually see the numbers start going up and seeing, the first dollar come in, it doesn't all become real until then. So it was an Amazon affiliate sale for us. That I think it was about month 8 was our first dollar that we made on it. And that was mind blowing. I think back to it then and that was really cool.
You talked about being a hobby niche. Is it or niche, depending on where you are?
Niche, yeah.
You can say both. You talk about being a hobby. Was it a hobby you were interested in? Is it a hobby you would say that, because some people will pick something that they are basically an expert in. So in the hobby world, maybe it's a hobby they've been doing for a while. They have a lot of contacts in the space. They have a lot of knowledge in the space. Some people pick a niche that they are interested in. So, hey, I don't know much about it, but I'm going to be kind of deep diving it. I'm going to learn how to mountain bike or whatever it is. So I might as well start a website about it, kind of double dip. Any of those true for you? Were you an expert in this niche already, or did you have an interest in it, or did you just kind of randomly throw a dart at a dartboard and pick this one?
No, certainly interested in it. Definitely not an expert in it. There's a lot of people in there that are a lot better, a lot more knowledgeable in I guess, this niche than us. But we've both been doing it for a long time, and we're both coming from an amateur level with it. That sometimes can be helpful as well. When you get kind of experts in a space and they have this really high level of, information that they're sharing, we kind of thought maybe we'll just peel it back a little bit and speak from our own personal experiences. And that seems to have resonated a little bit. So it was certainly something that we're both passionate about and enjoy doing, and we still do it, usually weekly. But yeah, that's, I guess, where it came from, was just something that we thought, we love doing this. We might as well use that as a focus because we can write heaps about it and, not having to research too much as well. I think if you're going to a niche where, you're starting from scratch in terms of your knowledge base, it can take a long time to write content.
Right.
Whereas we could kind of write it from just a self-knowledge base, which really helped to kind of pump it out early, which was good.
You talked about alphabet soup style keyword research. I'm familiar with it, but maybe share a little bit more about that so that if anybody doesn't know what that is, they can kind of get your take on it. Maybe anything you were doing that was a little bit unique, or things you learned along the way as you did it to kind of perfect it, maybe specifically for what you were doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say perfected. It's better, but it's effectively kind of just using Google autocomplete. It's a pretty popular one that I said, obviously the income school guys kind of coined the term, I guess, but it's just effectively using Google autocomplete to do your keyword research for you. So say if the keyword is Labradors, I'd search a lot of different, kind of question keywords. So it might be should Labradors, A, B, C, go through, the different letters of the alphabet and see what is suggested. So it could be, should Labradors, can Labradors, do Labradors, how do Labradors, and just go through A, B, C through all of that. It's amazing what kind of keywords you can find by just using that method. I've been trialing a little bit with low fruits as a keyword research tool. So it's a bit cheaper than Ahrefs, and it kind of, my understanding of it, just looking at the dashboard and things, it kind of does that. It uses, people also ask to help, I guess, show the keywords that it's coming up for you. So yeah, I haven't really had to spend $200 a month on Ahrefs. To be honest, I just haven't seen the value, considering it's working what we're doing at the moment. Maybe I'm missing out on heaps of really good juicy keywords that we should be going after. But yeah, at this stage, it's just worked for us, and that's kind of, if it's working, why change it?
One of the common pieces of feedback or struggles with that approach to keyword research can be that you end up with a lot of topics, and a lot of them have, call it similarities, like, I'll follow your example. Can Labradors walk in hot weather? Can Labradors run in hot weather? Can Labradors sprint in hot weather? Can I take my Labrador to the park in hot weather? And so they're like, this is hot weather thing, right? I've made this up, so I apologize if there's any Labrador owners out there that maybe this is ridiculous, but you get a lot of similar keywords, right? How did you decide which ones to write? How did you decide how long to write them? That's another thing that some of these more advanced paid tools will tell you. And because clearly you've gotten a lot of these articles right. So I'm just curious how you took these topics, figured out which ones to go after, and then figured out how to assemble them into an article.
Yeah, for sure. It's really bad because it's kind of, I would just say, use your common sense, but that's not really teachable, and people can't really kind of take anything actionable away from that, I guess. But it really is just, I think knowing your niche is a big one. Right. That's why I would say to people, do something that you understand and something that you know already, because when you get those keywords that come up, you can quickly discern which ones are just a Google autocomplete that's spatted out that, this is interesting, people might like that, compared to the ones that you go, okay, that's actually something that will apply to my niche, and I can actually see myself searching that. I really don't write any articles on keywords if it's not something that I would have searched myself, which I think is a good way to go about it. And I think it really does cut down on those, those keywords that may seem like a good idea, but that Ahrefs might be spitting out, but not necessarily have much traffic at all.
Before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
Do you remember this campaign? It was all over the news. It is the most intelligent royal campaign. With over 100 links generated in the world's biggest online publications, this is one of the most viral PR campaigns of 2021. This is how we've done it. The methodology was pretty simple. We looked at the QS World University rankings for the institutions attended by key members of the royal family to discover which royal is the brightest of all. Meghan Markle came out on top, followed by Kate Middleton and Prince William. We put these findings in a press release and sent it to mainstream media and journalists who write about royals. From Russia to the UK, the US, Vietnam and Japan, this story got massive coverage, landing over 100 links and created a massive buzz on social media. Simple research, but a great story that journalists love to write about. I hope this will put you on fire and will give you inspiration.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now. I think that you're right. I think knowing your niche is a big one. I run a marketing agency for my day job, and so we're in niches I don't really have a whole lot of understanding with, and so that can pose a little bit of challenge sometimes when you're sifting through keywords or trying to know which articles are perhaps more topically relevant versus others. Luckily, we've got a big team, but I think that's got to be a big play. I mean, wind through where you're at now. How many of these articles are like affiliate style? You talked about how your first sale was on Amazon. How many are more informational? Some of the examples you gave are really informational. Are you monetizing with both Amazon and an ad network? Where are things at with the 215 posts you have now?
Yeah, sure. So we obviously started out monetizing with Amazon affiliate, just because it's one that you can get into with no kind of traffic barriers. So we still do that. We use Genius Link, being in Australia, obviously, and all the different global traffic that you get. We thought that was the best way to monetize it with Amazon, because Amazon affiliate don't have an Australian. Oh, sorry, they do. I think I can't remember why we did it in the first place. It's got me stumped. But anyway, we use Genius Link to kind of do that. We also with AdThrive, so we run display ads. A lot of the posts that we have are informational. We've tried to steer away from that really heavy review-based content, because there's a lot of it in our niche. It's quite competitive. Not just saying we can't rank for it. We just find that informational content can get just as much traffic without having to write these meaty 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 word blog posts. You asked just before what kind of word count we follow. I don't really have a set word count. The minimum posts that we would do is kind of around 1,000, 1,200, just because in our niche, anything less than that's kind of thin content, and you're probably not really going to rank against other websites. But I think the days of the 7,000, 8,000 word blog posts are kind of dead and buried. I don't think anyone wants to read those. We did.
Thank goodness.
I know, right?
So awful to write.
Oh yeah. We did, I think it was a 7,000 worder, and that was just absolute nightmare to write. It was hell. I wrote it over the course of about a week, and it was just, it goes okay, but that was a learning mistake. So that one I thought, that's going to get heaps of views. It's going to pull in, thousands and thousands and thousands a month, and it just doesn't. Like, it ranks in the top 2, but it just doesn't bring in anywhere near the traffic that I thought it would for the time that we put into it. So in terms of monetization, kind of just affiliate and ads at the moment.
Okay. And what's the split? Like in a month of summer or spring, like you talk about kind of high season, are you making most of your money from affiliate income, and or is it more from AdThrive and ads there on the site?
I'd say definitely ads. It's probably 80-20 maybe, I would say, as a split, like very heavily geared towards ads, which is probably, I guess, a little bit on our part as well. I probably haven't monetized it quite as well as what I could. There's certainly opportunity to lean more heavily into affiliates. I've been looking into, Lasso and Affiliatable and things like this. You can kind of have those product displays a little bit better. We kind of just have, text links at the moment, which I know aren't anywhere near as effective. But it's just the time. It's just finding the time, working full time still and working on it as a side hustle, and obviously trying to work on a couple of new websites as well. And those are the ones that I just work on my own. It's the main one is the one that I run with me and my mate. The 2 new ones that I'm building are just me on my own. So it's just finding the time. And I know email is another big one that we could be leaning into a little bit more as well. We do have an email list with a basic pop-up, but I've got a lot of ideas how we could certainly target it a lot better and target the different search traffic that's coming in to monetize that a little bit better. But it just comes down to time at the end of the day.
And again, for people listening, like, I don't want to assume too much, but you really just put your head down for a couple of years, written content, and not, fully optimized everything, and you're still making some great side hustle. So it might sound like you're leaving it on the table. It's also very encouraging, though, because you have a lot of opportunity still ahead of you.
There's definitely a lot of upside. It's just tapping into it and just finding that time. But it is. It's like I said, still while working a full-time job, I'm still realistic on how much time I can spend under it. But you're right. Those first 2 years were pretty brutal. Like working up until 1 a.m, writing articles, or early in the morning before work. I reckon I said to you before the show, I'm not normally a morning person, so I'm a bit more of a night owl. So I'll write a lot of my content, after work, get home after dinner, and when my wife's gone to bed, I'll stay up for a couple of hours writing articles. So it's not glamorous, I'm sure everyone else who owns a niche site as well, who's kind of doing those bigger figures, you don't just get there overnight, and you don't just get there by writing kind of 10, 20 posts. Like, you've really just got to stick at it with, for 1-2 years, and really just grind away.
Well, this is probably a good time for me to ask, because I have it in my notes here. You said it was 8 months until you made your first $1. how many articles do you think were live? Just approximate. I know you probably don't have it in front of you, but like how, because a lot of people, I think the time is difficult without knowing how much work you'd put in as well. Because I could say I've worked on a site for 8 months, but if I've only published 10 articles, to your point, I haven't really worked that much on it. But if I've worked and published 80 articles on a site and I've written all that content myself over the course of 8 months, that's a much different type of proposition. Where were you at 8 months in when that first dollar finally came through?
Yeah, it was actually around 80.
Oh, well,
like you said, yeah. So you've guessed it. You've guessed it spot on. So
ding ding.
Yeah, go and buy a lottery ticket, Jared.
Today's my day. Today's my day.
Numbers. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was around 70, 80. So
okay, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work to not have a dollar yet. You know.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and that was, I guess, those learnings, like I said, back in 2018, knowing that it can take that long to start seeing decent traffic coming in. That's kind of what helped us stick at it, just going, no, we just got to keep pushing through. Like it'll happen. There's, traffic starting to roll in. We didn't realize once it did kick in how much of a kind of trajectory it would go up on. I know you talk about that kind of hockey stick growth, but it's not until you actually see it that you go, wow, like it's actually working. So because we went from, I think it was 7 or 8 months with 80 posts, making that first dollar. I think at the 12-month mark we made the first $1,000 month. And then I think it was month 23 or 4, we hit that first kind of $9,000 month. So it really just compounds, which was really cool to see.
So I want to talk about two things that are a bit unique to your site. First off, I want to talk about the kind of the country thing, because you're out of Australia. Then we'll touch on seasonality. So you're down in Australia, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can have an Australian-focused website, and the domain name will actually be with a .au in it, correct?
Correct, yeah. Yep.
Now, did you go with an Australian-focused domain with a .au in it, or did you go with a UK-focused domain, a .uk? Did you go just .com or whatever, so it would be more focused on, we'll call it worldwide traffic, maybe predominantly US? Like, what's the focus like, given that you're based in Australia, and how did you make that decision?
Yeah, no, it's definitely .com. I wanted to steer away from, we wanted to steer away from just Australian traffic. Obviously, with ads, the US is, the big, I guess you could say, money spinner in terms of display ads.
Right.
The UK as well. So no, we got a lot of traffic. The bulk of our traffic is actually from the US.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, the niche is obviously quite worldwide. So there's people searching it all over the place. When we started, so we probably were geared more, the way the site started was geared more towards an Australian audience. And we quickly pivoted away from that, which, was kind of by luck in a way. We just, the idea that we had to start with, we went, yeah, this is really going to work. But it wasn't until kind of 2 or 3 months in that we went, actually, we really don't think the search volume is going to be anywhere near enough for these for these phrases. We need to broaden it a little bit. And thankfully, the domain that we picked, being a .com, allowed us to do that. The domain itself is probably not as good as it could be. It's probably a little bit specific sometimes, if you're looking at country by country. But that hasn't impacted the traffic that we get from globally. So yeah, all the websites that I run now are .com.
Okay. Did you look at all into, it sounds like you kind of at least understood that, hey, between ad networks and the way they pay for, say, Australian traffic versus US traffic, it's a lot lower. You wanted to focus on US traffic and UK traffic. Is it easier to rank in the Australian market? Like if you go do a search in Australia for some of your keywords, do you get Australian websites, or do you see like your website and other broader .com sites showing up? I'm just curious.
Definitely more broader
okay.
.com sites showing up. There is obviously Australian websites in the same niche that do it. That just have a bit of a different content focus than what we do. So yeah, we kind of, I guess most of the competitors that we have in our space are .coms, big US sites. But as a little guy kind of starting out, we kind of found that point of difference in the market that we thought we could tap into, especially around that informational content. So that's kind of what we did. The space has got, I think, more crowded and more competitive even since we started 2.5 years ago in it. I think that's just the boom of people getting interested in blogging and making money online. Even though a lot of people saying SEO is dead with Google Bard and Bing coming up, I still think there's an opportunity in there for people starting up today, especially with all these AI tools that you can use to kind of fast track content and things like that. But yeah, it's basically US competitors and global traffic for us.
I've always been curious about taking a concept that maybe I know works well in one niche for it's competing well for, call it US traffic. And I've always wondered what it would look like to maybe start that similar type of concept or site focused on a specific market. But then like you said, it's a good point. Not only is the traffic potential smaller because you're just focusing on one market, but you're right. If you go into say AdThrive or any of the ad networks you're with, and you look at the RPMs that are paying out by country, it's crazy how much higher like the US, Canada, UK, these kind of places are. You're right.
Yeah, way higher. But it's funny you say that. Like the one of the new ones I'm building, the one that I had on that self-aged domain, I guess you could call it, in in the real estate niche. That one it's still a .com, but it's geared purely towards an Australian audience, largely. Okay. So that one's a bit more of a local, I guess, SEO kind of play. And that's why I'm not focusing on ads or affiliate on that one at this stage. That one will purely be, it's not making any money at the moment, but the intention is for it to be a bit more of a lead generation kind of play. So getting emails and then hopefully selling those details for leads. So I'm hoping it will be a low traffic kind of site, but with a higher return. It's just something that I wanted to try. It's very different from display ads or affiliate marketing income. But I remember watching a podcast. I can't remember which channel it was on. There was a guy I think he was doing like 5,000 or 6,000 page views a month and earning 10 grand a month from this website because it was just hyper targeted to lead generation. So I'm dipping my toe into that and seeing how it goes. But yeah, it's still only in month one of that really at this stage.
Right. Well, let's talk about the seasonality, because like I said, that is there is seasonality, and then there's your seasonality. That is brutal. Why? Like what? I think the big question I would have for people who are listening, especially people who might be still deciding on what niche to jump into or what topic to jump into. What have you learned now about your niche that you wish you'd known as it relates to seasonality? And are there any things that people can do to kind of be more aware of that going into it? Because it sounds like that really caught you by surprise. Certainly the gravity of the up versus the downside is pretty dramatic,
Yeah, for sure. Definitely did catch us by surprise. So the niche in Australia is an all year round, kind of thing.
Oh, fascinating. Well, you guys have such great weather, maybe that's why.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Not so much the case in some other countries. So it wasn't until we realized that we went, oh, okay, maybe this is actually seasonal. And it wasn't until, it was basically as a last resort. I was panicking going, we've just been hit by an update. This is not good. I was looking at, I redid the website in terms of theme, put on a faster theme, really like drilled down on all those kind of things. But it wasn't until I kind of banged our main search term into Google Trends that it was actually just this clear correlation between the trend traffic and the way our traffic was going. So it would go up towards June and then kind of come back down towards January. And I looked at, the 5-year data on that, and it was just identical every year. So that kind of gave us a little bit more confidence that, okay, we haven't actually been penalized by, a Google update, because all the content was written ourselves. Like I like to think it's quite high quality. We're, ranking quite high in search for a lot of terms, a lot of number one terms, a lot of snippets. So it was actually relieving that it was seasonal. We're still waiting for it to go back up, and the traffic is starting to improve, as we head towards the middle of the year. I'm not counting my chickens just yet until they they hatch in June. But certainly looking at that trend data, gave us a lot more confidence that it is actually seasonal. But yeah, in terms of giving, I guess, other people advice, I don't know. To me, it doesn't worry me too much. If it's going to have those high highs and those lower lows, I guess if it averages out over the course of the year, it's not too bad. It's frustrating in terms of, I'd love to do this full time at some point, I'd really love to make the jump into it, and seasonality makes it that little bit harder, especially convincing my wife that don't worry, like this will make us enough money, especially when you've got those down months. So if I had to do it again, I'd probably look to the two niches that I'm working in at the moment on these new websites aren't in seasonal niches, and that's kind of by I've written that playbook up just because of the seasonality of the main one that we do. But yeah, I don't know, if people are interested in niche and it's seasonal, just go into it with the understanding that you're going to have those fluctuations, and don't panic when you see them.
My first career was as a photographer, mainly weddings, events, these kind of things. And so January and February, where I am, are just brutal for no one's having events in those months. And so, yeah, I understand the seasonality component, as long as you're just kind of saving during the good months, I was just gonna say it's a good example actually, because in Australia, so weddings are all year round. We don't get those really depths of winters. Everything's not frozen over in the middle of winter here. I know in certain parts of Australia it is, but I've had mates that were married in winter, and it was fine. You'd still absolutely be paying for wedding photographers. So it's, I guess, a good example of that difference between the US and Australia in terms of that climate. That's a good point. And the fact that winter for you is different than winter in, say, where I am, the United States. And that can also play a seasonal component, because you can think of something as a wintertime event, a wintertime hobby, a wintertime activity, whatever your whatever your niche is. But the seasonality might also be flipped, because if your traffic is mainly from a different country you're in, it's a lot to, take into consideration.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, is it winter over there for you guys? It's middle of summer over here for us. So
we're about to get more rain and snow here. So you're probably middle of summer, about to sweat yourself off today, So
yeah, I think we had a 42 degrees Celsius day last week. So whatever that is in the US, I think 105, 6, 7 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's over 100. So, yeah. My conversion's a little rusty, but I know it's over 100.
It's hot. Yeah.
Very. Yeah. One thing, one tip people can utilize if they're trying to evaluate seasonality versus maybe a ranking drop or a Google algorithm update is to pop your site over and look at the Google Search Console data, because you can actually trend out and look at average ranking position. And so usually when we're looking at a client's website or a new client, we look at their traffic over the last year, and we'll see some drops. And one of the first questions is, is it seasonal, or did something happen? And so what we'll do is we'll compare the traffic drops up against what Google Search Console is reporting as their average ranking. And if they kind of drop simultaneously, okay, that's probably something algorithmic. But if the rankings stay the same, but the traffic dropped, oftentimes that's an indication of seasonality.
Yeah, I mean, the rankings, I think we maybe lost, it might have been 1 or 2 positions on average, across the site.
Nothing big.
It wasn't this huge bang, we've lost all our snippets, everything's gone to page 3. It wasn't like that. So that's why, I was kind of scratching my head thinking like, what's happening with this? Because it just didn't make a lot of sense. And I think those rankings that we have lost, I've seen a lot of big news sites go to the top of the SERPs, the big domain authority, Forbes is one. In our niche, there's a couple other, I guess, really big news sites in the space that have certainly got a bump. Like I was seeing articles from 2008 all of a sudden just pop into the top of the SERPs, ahead of our content, just because of the domain authority that these sites have. I think the other thing as well is that you probably noticed it as well in the search engines, like you're seeing a lot more ads at the top of it. You're seeing a lot more videos and YouTube shorts and TikTok. So I think that's pushed, naturally down a little bit as well, some of our articles. It's not that we're being outranked by, I guess, better written content. It's that, I guess, the space at the top of the SERPs is potentially a little bit more crowded, with all that video content particularly. So, but like you said, it was nice looking at that Google Search Console data and not seeing this huge big drop off of rankings or anything like that. It was just the traffic going down, which was the frustrating.
Well, Google Trends, that's a great tip on the Google Trends. I think Google Trends is a very underutilized area that people can lean into, not only for maybe new content ideas, but also to analyze trends and understand what topics come and go in their niche. So, well, hey, let's let's talk a bit about what's next for this site at 215 posts without knowing exactly, what hobby niche you're in or whatnot. Like, you might be nearing the end of the big topics, or you might only be scratching the surface on the big topics. Like, what's the next year look like for you guys as you continue to work on this website?
Yeah, sure. So we're still steadily publishing. Probably not at the velocity that we were in to start with. After 215, we both, especially when you're seeing traffic just kind of go down, you lose that little bit of motivation. But we've still been adding content steadily. I guess over the next 12 months, the goal is just to keep adding content, but also probably to maybe move away from informational content a little bit and maybe start into heavily into more products. That's one area of our niche that there's a big appetite for it. We just haven't really dipped our toe into that as much. So that's certainly something that we'll probably pivot into, hoping to. Probably monetizing a little bit better. I mentioned earlier about email being a big one. In our niche, I think there's a really big opportunity for that as well. So whether it's through ConvertKit or MailerLite or any of these kind of email things, kind of having a bit more of a targeted email campaign, depending on what people are searching for. I'd love to try and get into that a bit more. So if, they're searching for, I don't know, Labrador toys, for example, having a different lead magnet pop up on those pages as opposed to, just a generic one. That would certainly be something I want to try and focus on. With that site, that's pretty much that. The other two, for me, it's content still at this stage. The new one that's only 7 months old, I want to get that to at least 100 posts. I think that's a pretty good benchmark for the niche that I'm in for that. Monetize. So I guess the year ahead, it's more of the same, really. It's not
more
glamorous.
Content.
More content, but just optimizing things a little bit better as well. I think we're probably not doing that as well as what we can, especially on that main site.
Well, I wondered if you'd say something when I asked you this question. And so I'll ask you now, anything thus far or going forward with links? Are you building links? Have you built links to this site? Is that a major component of what you're doing? We haven't talked about link building yet, but it's something a lot of people want to know about, especially as it relates to sites that are growing, fairly quickly.
Yeah, sure. So no, I haven't built a single link to any of my sites. Maybe that was just through kind of the naivety of just, you just publish content and it'll rank. But to be honest, it's worked for us. And I think the distinction to make is that backlinks are very important. It's not this thing of, I don't focus on backlinks, they're not important. Basically, we were just fortunate that the content that we published, I guess, is, of interest to people. It's obviously been, I think we've got over 1,000 domains referring to our website. I don't have Ahrefs, but I know someone who does, and he kind of shared all that data with me only about a month ago, which is really nice of him. And it was kind of cool to look at our backlink profile in a bit more detail, and to have that, over 1,000, referring domains, not just the backlinks to the site, was kind of cool to see, considering we hadn't physically built any. But I think there's this kind of, I don't know, in the SEO space, it seems to be this kind of backlinks, no backlinks kind of argument, but it's, I don't think there's any debate that they're important. It's just not something that I've had really any experience with. I think there's more risk of me blowing up my website, trying to buy backlinks and buying, shady links, or just accidentally doing it and, getting negative SEO towards our site. So I just kind of steer away from it just because it's been working the way we're working at the moment. But that's not to say that if people got experience building backlinks, like, sure, go for it. If I had that knowledge and a bit more of the confidence to do that, then I probably would look into it more. But it's just not something that I'm just not comfortable with it, just because I don't have that knowledge. So
that makes sense. It's I love the way you shared it, where what you're doing isn't necessarily reflective of a value judgment on its importance, but it's what you're doing. It's because of your priorities, how you've prioritized. You talked at the beginning about journalism giving you the ability to prioritize what to do every day. That's kind of the most important thing. And it sounds like for you guys have kind of cracked the code a bit on, you're good at content, putting your time and effort towards that.
Yeah, I think it's just leaning into your strengths, I think is the main thing. Like, yeah, like I said, it's not to say that backlinks aren't important, because yeah, I don't think anyone would debate their importance. It's just identifying what you're good at, which for me is just writing content and focusing on that.
Yeah, it's fun to sit here because I get to interview people every week, and one week you get someone coming on who's had great success and talks a lot about the way that they build links. The next week you get someone coming on who's had great success and doesn't do any sort of link building. So if anything, it's proof to those listening, like there's a lot of different ways to crack this nut.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no, and that's, I always preface everything that I say or write on Twitter with, it's just the way that it's worked for me. It's not the right or the wrong way. I think, if you're going out with a position that, oh, this is the only one way to do it, I think that's when people get their noses out of joint, because there are so many people doing it so many different ways, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just find a method that works for you, hopefully get a bit of success with it, and then just double down on what works is the way that I kind of go about it.
So as we start to wrap up, I want to ask you a question that I think every one of us listening to this podcast struggles with, and that is when to double down and continue focusing on the project they have versus starting a new one. You started project 2 and project 3. We talked about the first website, second website. Just to keep it clear, the second website is does have an AI component to it. The third website has a programmatic component to it. But you've made the decision to kind of split your focus. You're already working full time. So how did you navigate deciding that project 2 and project 3 were a good use of your time versus just doubling down on your current site? Because we all struggle with it, right? Like we all struggle with knowing when to keep working hard on the project we're on versus when to start up another project.
Yeah, look, in hindsight, it probably wasn't a great idea to split my time and attention so much, because I do feel like I am juggling a lot of balls at the moment. But I guess with the programmatic site, I'm not hugely actively working on it. I mean, I published 387 blog posts a month ago using that kind of programmatic template. So they're kind of just sitting there and ranking at the moment. And once I put, some lead magnets on that, that'll just be a kind of set and forget for a little while, I think, while that content ranks. So I really feel like I'm just splitting my focus between the main site and the new one that I'm building in the pet niche that I mentioned before. So,
right.
I think to me, it's just setting a weekly goal on what you want to work on. So it might be, this week I'm going to be working on content for my main site. This week I'm going to be working content on my new site, and not trying to mix the two. I feel that if you can compartmentalize it week by week, I think that's a really good way to go about it, so that you're not jumping from task to task, different niches every second day. Kind of have a I guess a bit more of a concentrated focus on one for a long enough period of time. So for me, that's a week. If I can knock out 3 articles in a week, and then switch focus, that seems to have worked for me. I've been able to move the needle forwards on that. But yeah, starting in terms of when to start a new site, the only reason I started was because the first one I thought was dying. if I'm completely honest, I thought, oh man, the traffic's going to zero on this. Like, this is not good. It's been a good run. Well, might as well start something new, and just because I think when people see traffic nosedive, you can really panic, and you can really do, I think, a lot more damage than just by letting it sit and just seeing how it works out. Like, I've listened to a couple other podcasts. It was a guy talking about when it happened to him. Yeah, it changed all these different things, and it actually ended up worse off than where it was at the start. And traffic kind of ended up just recovering naturally anyway. So that was, I guess, I'm not going to say a learning, but it was kind of me just being not panic, but just going, oh, the traffic's going down. I'm not just going to, overhaul this whole website. I'm just going to start something new while I wait to see what happens with the main one. So it wasn't really an active decision as like, all right, I'm in a great position to start a new website now. It was more, we're just going to let this one sit. And while that's kind of sitting there, I'm going to turn my focus to something new.
No, it's smart. I mean, it's really smart. I think with the increase in Google updates, right, over the last year or so, and there's a lot to be said for having more than one site, so you can kind of be working on a project that you see moving forward, right? Because you're exactly right. Like I've had it happen too, where a website has, kind of gotten dinged a bit in a website or in an update. And then, 2-3 weeks later, you don't even touch it and it bounces right back, and they reverse the algorithm update or something like that. So sage advice to kind of don't delete the site either, but, don't jump the gun maybe, but having more than one project to work on. With that being said, obviously you don't want to leave a site for 6 months on end. And that probably won't help it recover. So there's a balance there, but I like the way you prioritize and kind of focus on a little bit of each month or each week.
Yeah, for sure. I think like sometimes I say the hardest thing is to do nothing, but I think that it can be decent advice, like rather than just panicking and blowing up your website by, changing a million different things and overhauling all your content, because obviously like your content's got to that point because obviously you were doing something right to start with, provided building shady backlinks or it's not pure AI or something like that. Like if you've put the time in and written content yourself and done research and gone the extra mile, like I think it's I don't want to jinx me, but I think it's unlikely that you're going to get penalized. I know some people have different opinions on that, but I think it may be other factors potentially. For us it was seasonality. It wasn't the fact that the content was bad, it was just that we were in a seasonal niche which we didn't really realize. So I think without jumping the gun and changing things too quickly, I think can sometimes be a decent move. But then that's not talking from any professional expertise, technical SEO space. It's just from my experience with it. Yeah.
Well, fair enough. Caveat inserted.
Yeah, thanks. I thought I had to add that in there.
Fair enough. Grady, this has been great. Again, you downplayed it quite a bit, but I think pretty much everybody listening would be really stoked to start a side project with no SEO experience. And a couple years later be, making almost 5 figures a month. So great job. Where can people follow along with you? Where can people connect with you if they have, any questions or comments?
Yeah, sure. Before I say that, it's been a pleasure being on, Jared. I've absolutely loved it. Like, watched the podcast for a long time. It's been really cool just to have an hour chat with you. If people want to find me, I'll hang out on Twitter. Trying to just kind of document my process. My handle's at niche grades. Everyone seems to have niche in the handle, so I was like, well, might as well just add it to the pile. So so if you want to connect with me on Twitter, I'd love that. Like I said, I've just started up a newsletter which I kind of document the journey a little bit more in that. But it's been really cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming by. We'll get that Twitter handle in the Twitter handle in the show notes, and much continued success. I hope that come summertime, your site is just killing it, and and that not only does it bounce back to where it was last year, but hopefully that you guys excel even further. So much continued success.
Fingers crossed. Thanks for that, Jared.
All right. Until next time.
Cheers.
Introducing nichesites.com. Are you looking to scale your niche site portfolio or build your first website? Look no further than nichesites.com. With a portfolio of successful websites and over 700 plus satisfied clients, the folks at nichesites.com have the skills and experience to help you succeed. From keyword research to link building, content writing to done-for-you websites, nichesites.com offers a full range of services to help your content site grow. As the saying goes, a trial is worth more than 1,000 words, and they're offering a special trial just for new customers. You get 5,000 words of content completely free with your order of 10,000 plus traffic backlinks. Don't miss this opportunity. Head on over to nichesites.com/trial and take advantage of this amazing trial offer. Again, it's niche sites, plural, nichesites.com/trial. Go claim your free content today. Today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
Do you remember this campaign? It was all over the news. It is the most intelligent royal campaign. With over 100 links generated in the world's biggest online publications, this is one of the most viral PR campaigns of 2021. This is how we've done it. The methodology was pretty simple. We looked at the QS World University Rankings for the institutions attended by key members of the royal family to discover which royal is the brightest of all. Meghan Markle came out on top, followed by Kate Middleton and Prince William. We put these findings in a press release and sent it to mainstream media and journalists who write about royals. From Russia to the UK, the US, Vietnam and Japan, this story got massive coverage, landing over 100 links and created a massive buzz on social media. Simple research, but a great story that journalists love to write about. I hope this will put you on fire and will give you inspiration.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now.